Hello, my name is Michael Randolph, and I'm with the West Tampa Community Development Corporation. Today, we're going to have a presentation that was done a little while back that involved a community engagement on Black crime and violence. It was a community discussion that allowed us to get engaged into what is the community mindset. And from there, we put together what's known as the West Tampa Public Safety Strategy. Over the years, we've had over 60 community meetings related to gathering community concerns. And I did say the big 60. We've done focus groups when we partner with the University of South Florida that engage thoughts from youth, businesses, seniors, neighborhood groups, residents, and others. We constantly try to keep our pulse on the community. This particular presentation is going to focus on the following. It's going to talk about what are the best practices from around the nation on Black encounter. It's going to talk about developing the first community-led citizen oversight police committee. The solution to any problem within the community is within the problem itself. We believe that change comes through people and not an organization that claim they represent the people. The key is accountability. The other thing we want to talk about is taking ownership, Black on Black crime, a pathway out of killing. And then finally, the discussion is going to talk about the comprehensive approach to ending poverty, lessons learned from around the country. This presentation is part one of a four-part presentation. Sit back, listen, and give your input. And you can give your input by emailing us at westtampacdc@gmail.com. That's westtampacdc@gmail.com.
I also have a master's degree in clinical counseling from Florida State.
Watch out.
So what I see with our concern is it starts early. It's a lack of education and the undereducation of our children. And because it happens to so many boys as opposed to girls, is because when our boys drop out of school, what is the only thing they're waiting for a male, a Hispanic or African-American male without a high school diploma? They rarely can get any type of assistance because they're not the primary child care provider. So they can't qualify for housing, they can't qualify for financial assistance because it goes with the parent that has the primary custody of the child.
Okay.
So that leaves them very few options. It leaves them with more criminal options than non-criminal options. It is a lack of perspective. Hopelessness is the primary thing that our boys experience. And it starts early. It starts in elementary school. It starts in 3 and 4 year olds when these kids are not properly educated. It is the entire community's responsibility to make certain that our children are being educated.
Yes.
I see more often than not where young single female parents will take their child to football practice, baseball practice, and basketball practice because they see the value in that, but will not ensure that their child comes to school at least 90% of the time and on time. Those are the best tools we can give our children in order to succeed. Have them in school, and have them in school on time, prepared to learn.
Good. Now, someone I'm going to ask to give their thoughts into this. Young man, what about you? Your demographic is most likely to be killed, stopped by the police. Give us some feedback. What do you think? What are the solutions?
I think the solution, like my brother said, that
Please recognize your brief.
okay. My name is D. Jackson. with the West Tampa Alliance. I'm also a volunteer for any organization or anyone that you need a hand. I'm also part of the CDC of West Tampa. You know, I was born in West Tampa, I was raised in West Tampa, and I have a business here. And I think the solution should be integrated amongst all of the ideas and see what resources that we have available from within. Instead of offering discouragement, offer some type of encouragement to become more involved with these challenges that we face in our communities versus shun them off and be too busy for a sit down. Again, to answer your question, I asked, where is the mayor? Where is the chief of police?
Yep.
For situations like this,
They were
you know,
invited.
they would be on a panel where it's limited suggestions is offered and actually followed through those suggestions to work towards solutions. As always, we spend $400,000 on this. We spend $200,000 on that. And it just seems that that money just stays within and it doesn't trickle, well, I wouldn't say trickle down our community, but it should be returned back to our community respectfully for those that are paying taxes, law-abiding citizens. And it just confuses me to see with us being the people in the community and we just say, oh, well, they can do whatever they want to do. They start to think that they can do what they want to do. And I think if we work together and solve these challenges and sharing resources, information, access to best practices,
Right.
and see what goes from there.
Now, we have a young lady here. Let's just go get away. What are you doing? Okay? Give us your opinion. What's your opinion?
What do I think?
Yes. What
I
is
think,
the solution to the problem?
What is my solution? I think we need to talk to each other.
How are you?
I'm Michelle Arcona,
Okay.
mixed race, college graduate,
There you
and
go.
construction
See,
engineering.
over there.
Other than that,
You're a kind of crazy team, right?
but I also had my own differences. I also had to face the law myself, but that didn't stop me. That made me try harder because I made a mistake. I gave back to the community and I kept on going. I encourage young people because I once was there.
Okay.
So I think that we need to talk to each other, not only as I guess I think that we should talk to each other as relate-wise. Have you been through it? Have you actually lost something
Yeah.
through it?
Yeah.
We can connect like that,
Yeah.
I guess.
Now, that was good. Yeah, sorry, sir, we just needed to get there. So now, sir, go ahead. Because he was waving his hand, I didn't forget about you.
I got something to say.
Okay, go ahead.
We got two things on the floor. One is blackmail, you stop our police, I mean, we conduct ourselves. The other thing is violence in the black community.
Yes.
We're talking about both. This is my view. Well, let's talk about the car.
Sir, say who you are.
I'm Ricky Williams.
Okay.
I've been an attorney in my lifetime. I've been a prosecutor, I've been a defense attorney, and now I operate a statewide legal and medical referral service.
Okay.
But I'm not here for that at all. I'm really here because I care about
All right.
these kids, I care about all of us in the community. First of all, I think we need to teach our children that a car is not your home. In home, you have a right to privacy. That's the most privacy we could ever get in this country. It's at your home. It's your residence. It's not your car. I think we should talk to our kids about their appearance, their attitude, their mannerism. And one thing you tell your kids is there's a roadmap out there that tells you how to conduct yourself. It's called speed limit. And all you need to do is follow them and do what it's already laid out. It's kind of simple. But let's say when they do stop you, I believe that everybody in that car needs to put their hands out the window. Everybody. And you also need, before you start moving, need to ask that officer, can you do something? And ask him to direct you what to do.
Okay.
That's my belief. All right? Now, I think that a lot of kids engage in self-destructive behavior, which draws a lot of attention. And I don't think you have a right to smoke marijuana in your car
Okay.
as you like to. Now, let me get on to the black on black violence.
Okay.
All right? Black males, this is my view, black males that are killing each other are not in college, not in trade schools, and not in the military. This is a group of disenfranchised black males that have been left behind because they chose to not work hard in school. I think these kids must be identified and some alternative must be provided. I'm a true believer in social welfare, after school program, whatever it takes to keep us from going to prison or being dead. I think maybe we can come out of this with a program on television that directly identifies these black issues. Let's go find out what happened in this incident when this black child was killed, what happened in this incident when these two black boys ended up killing one another, and let's see about it. Maybe it was a girl, maybe it was drugs, maybe it was something he said about his mother. And let these are little small things that's not important. People need to know. Maybe we can teach our kids when you see this, go the other way. I mean, that's my answer to that. And here's the last one, sir. We need to get rid of the no snitch rule in the black neighborhood.
Amen.
Okay? Black people, I grew up, when I was a child, I saw two cars run down a dirt road, one flipped in the ditch. And the police came and I raised my hand. My mother took me home and beat me.
Okay.
Now, I became a prosecutor in Daytona. A woman poured lie on another woman. I went into the black neighborhood and then like that, talking to a witness. She said, I don't have anything to say. I don't know. I said, yeah, I understand because we all been taught that. But the problem is when it happens to our child, when our family members, when it comes home directly to us. She looked at me and she said, you shouldn't have poured the lie on her. I said, that's all I need you to tell the jury.
Okay.
We won that case.
Yeah.
In Chicago, real quick.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, this is important, brother. I mean, this is very important. This is so important that I'm gonna get it out. I'm in Chicago, and I'm in the black neighborhood, and they call it No Love City.
Okay.
Okay? Black male, young black male turns to a baby and says, curse words, tell this child what to do. I said, you're not going to curse that child in front of me, son.
Okay.
My son, who's 26, hit me. Dad, leave him alone. I said, what? Ain't no way to allow this.
Okay.
I'm from Tampa. I'm in Chicago for one day. I'm not going to allow this. We can't allow to sit here and watch somebody do something wrong. That person is still in our neighborhood. Who killed that person, who raped that person, who sold drugs to that person, who pimped that little girl. They still in the neighborhood.
Okay.
They're coming at your child, they're coming at you.
I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. So, man, what do you think? I'm letting you get right, right?
It was hard for me to hide in this.
So what do you think? You interested black on black crime and black on police? Kind of give it from your perspective when you hear these things. Give me your opinion, give me your thoughts.
Well, first of all, I
Say your
think
name first.
my name is Vicki Walker. I live in this neighborhood and I just work in this neighborhood. I'm actually a minister at Hyde Park Methodist Church, and I think that what affects one of us affects all of us. I think that white privilege is a real thing, and that systems have to change, and so I want to be a part of changing the criminal justice system, of changing all the things that can contribute to this, the education system, all of these things. And I appreciate the things that you were just saying, and I feel like sometimes the kids are so hopeless and they come up with this permanent solution to a temporary problem. And if there's a way that we can help them have hope, so.
I think this gentleman has one question, then we're going to go to the solutions.
We were talking about problems and solutions. And your first statistic up there, I think one of the problems is the proliferation of guns on the streets.
Yeah.
So certainly one solution needs to be harder for people to get guns in their hands. But my friend Ricky, I agree with everything you said except the first one. And what Ricky did was tell us how we should, as African American, particularly men, act when the police pulls over. The problem is everybody doesn't have to do that. He's telling us how we have to do it to survive, because based on what has been happening lately, it appears that we got to act different. That's the problem.
That is the
we have to act different. So while you're right, that shouldn't be. That advice doesn't apply to everybody.
Well, the man was a passenger that got shot.
Say, Joe, what do you say? Let's let this gentleman get weighed in. Your name, sir?
Hey, I'm Archie Gianella. I've been living in Tampa since 1963. What I want to say as far as, I can't really tell other people how to live their lives, but as far as what might work towards solutions, everybody says you can't fix it by throwing money at it. I'm going to tell you can fix a lot of things by throwing money at it. I'm going to just, I was a truck driver delivering supplies to the school system back when the schools were fully integrated in the late 70s, maybe it's early. Anyway, I forget the exact year. I was driving, delivering these supplies the year before, the year after, and the second year after. All these low income, mostly black neighborhoods, I'd go and drop the stuff off, and the lockers were terrible, the books were old, everything was crap, okay? The next year, when there were white people in there going to school, things were a whole heck of a lot better. The second year, things were a hell of a lot better. And, you know, you can't solve everything by throwing money at it, but if you ain't got the money, it will not get solved.
I want to respond to that from a school district aspect, and I want to say something too. One of the main things, I'm probably one of the few people that have been involved in shootings, cousins, and everything else, and survived it, and lived to talk about it. And I've been to Chicago when you're talking about Rick, and if you had gone on, you probably got shot. So your son was telling you the right thing to do. Having been in gunfire myself. One of the problems that I find with our African-American males with this black-on-black crime, because I talk to them in the hole. I go in any hole in this town. And what it is this. It's conflict resolution. When you're debating and I'm out talking you, and I'm wordsmithing you, because you got a little bit of reading level, you probably level 3, and I'm probably level 0. Okay, and I can't deal with you, then I pull out my 9mm and I'm gonna solve this problem right now. That's conflict resolution going on in the black community right now with these youth. That's the resolution. Conflict resolution don't exist. It's violence is the result of a miseducation. Now let's move forward to what this gentleman said. The school district, as I said, is in a state of denial. There is not equity across the board, especially in our inner city schools. What was Brown v. Board versus education about? Everybody says separate but equal. Not necessarily true. It was about equal facilities. Today, Carter Elementary. Today, Dunbar over there. Today, Justin Stewart right here in this community are raggedy, and they're trying to tell us that they're great schools, that they're great facilities. Forget the internal, let's talk about the buildings. The air conditioning fell in that part. Why they spending $3.5 million all of a sudden to fix air conditioning? They should have fixed it several years. This gentleman is right. You don't see that at Plant. You don't see that at Brothers Green. But you have to have somebody to speak truth to power. Stop taking Macy's gift cards to shut up and take care of business as it needs to be taken care of. Until we do that, we're not going to get anywhere. So the time has come. The time has come, and I'll let them get in. The time has come for change. The time has come for not being inside, working outside. The time has come to make sure that we get it out there and expose the corruption, expose the coercion, and expose these things. And because the bottom line is, I don't have to prove anything. Just look at the numbers. Just look at the
We're
numbers.
gonna have you do a quick one and then we're gonna go to the solutions.
Mine is a rebuttal. And one thing that gentleman said, right, throwing money at things solves a whole host of problems. The problem with schools not being funded equitably is because schools receive the majority of their funding from ad valorem taxes, your property taxes. And because the property values are different throughout the entire county, that speaks to why schools are not funded equitably. What you said is why politicians or want to be politicians will say something and once they get in office, it never comes to fruition. Because that's not a promise that the school board can keep. We don't set the millage rate. We can't increase your property values. The only way schools are going to be funded properly is that everybody pays the same amount of money. And just a few months ago, when South Tampa was having that flooding issue, everybody outside of South Tampa did not want to pay those increased fees. We have to work with what we have. And that's all that we have to do. We have to make certain it's not necessarily a money issue. It's a motivation issue. It's a lack of hope issue. It's a lack of respect for education. Money will solve it. But how many of you are willing to pay those extra $1,000 in property taxes? And that's what it's going to take. At least an extra $1,000 from everyone in this district.
Okay, we got one more person, and I promise we're gonna go to the solution. Ma'am?
I'm Beverly Ward, I promise to be brief. For those of you who know me, I do a lot of research on asset mapping and talking about the values within communities. However, I cannot sit here and not address 400 years of systemic racism, okay? So we've got to deal with that.
In the room.
If we talk about equality, we need to talk about equity. If there are differences in ad valorem taxes, there are ways to adjust that and to make sure that there are equitable distributions among schools. But we know, as we're talking about policy, we know within Hillsborough County, you can have discrimination within schools. Where you have charter schools within charter schools, where one side of the school gets better resources than others. That's not equality. That's not a question of ad valorem taxes. That's just an example. It's not to rebut anybody, but that's an example of systemic racism, of how policy decisions give results that are inequitable. That's what we need to be, those are the kinds of things that we need to talk about on the policy level, but in terms of what we can do with the resources within this room, we can turn a lot of things around right now.
Oh, excellent. So, before we go there, I do want to recognize Kevin. Kevin is the one that's doing the video and everything. Kevin is also committed to mental health, especially as it relates to youth. So his passion is there. You're going to hear a lot about this man right here. He's doing a lot of things related to youth and mental health. That's going to be wonderful about his focus. Please, everybody, make sure you sign in, because we want to send you a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. Can we go to the next slide, please? So, in intimate partner violence, the big elephant in the room. Nearly 20 people per minute are going to be subjected to physical abuse by their intimate partner here in the United States. Which means a family member or a significant other. That's also part of the violence that's in our neighborhood. We talked about the guns, folks. Now we got to talk about that little dark secret about intimate partner violence. Here's the numbers. 1 in 3 females and 1 in 3 males, by 1 in 4 males, males are also subjected to abuse as well, are victim of some type of physical violence by their intimate partner within their lifetime. 15% of all violence is attributed to somebody you know in your household. Your husband, your wife, your As you see, this was an engagement of both blacks and whites and people from different walks of life to talk about solutions as it relates to violence, crime. The next conversation we're going to have is going to focus on a model that can be used throughout the United States. Again, it is the first community-led citizen oversight committee. And we're going to talk about that during our presentation, part 2. Part 3 and part 4 is going to be very important because it's going to talk about that, the conversation we had with the community related to a comprehensive approach to ending poverty, and more important, lessons learned around the nation. Now, one of the conversations we didn't have, and it's new information that we want to share with the community, so it's so relevant to understanding understanding why people do what they do. Now, what we didn't talk about, what we're going to talk about also during future conversation is what's called as intergenerational trauma. And how does intergenerational trauma affects the immune system, both psychologically and physiologically as well. So those some new, the new school of thought that's coming down the pipeline that we want to throw out there in the mix as we begin to talk about Black on Black crime, Black on Black violence, and solutions. Thank you for joining on this presentation. We'll be sending out the next part 2 and 3 soon. Listen out for us. Connect to us at West Tampa CDC at gmail.com. That's West Tampa CDC at gmail.com. Thank you. I hope this conversation with real people talking about real problems has in some way enlightened you.